1942. The Second World War is raging as the German Wehrmacht continues their campaign against the Soviet Union. The Germans have taken control of Western Soviet territory in their spring offensives and have a new plan for the summer. The Germans launched an assault against Moscow in the winter of 1941 and 1942. The Soviets refuted the attack at the cost of men and weaponry. Stalin and his officials fully expected another attack on the capital, but it wasn't directed where they had expected it. The German Sixth Army started their attack on the city of Stalingrad on August 23, 1942. Crushing small opposition designed to slow the German advance, the Sixth Army was successfully stalled by the Russian soldiers. Now, having an understanding of the German plans, Stalin ordered that the city evacuate its grain and cattle stores, but not the population of the 400,000 civilians, as Stalin planned for them to inspire the Soviet soldiers. The Luftwaffe made the Volga River impassable only a few days after initiating the attack. Dozens of airstrikes decimated the city for months. Luftwaffe forces controlled the skies over the city of Stalingrad, creating a desperation among the Russians. All workers were called to fight the invading Germans, most without any weapons, and women were enlisted to dig trenches along the front lines. By the fall of 1942, Stalingrad became a city of ruins, with hundreds of thousands already dead.
Well, Moscow would have been more of a symbolic victory, while Stalingrad would have been more strategic because of the Caucasus, right? To, to secure the versus down in that region. Kind of it's an ego thing going on there too.
Receiving heavy casualties, Stalin dictates that the city shall not retreat through his order number 227, not a step back. Upon surrendering, you would be subject to trial by military tribunal and most likely face execution. Less than 20,000 troops and under 100 tanks was Stalingrad's defense until finally receiving reinforcements to the city and its surrounding areas. Fighting ensued in the close quarters of the streets of Stalingrad, and snipers made their playgrounds out of the buildings and streets of the city. Vasily Zaitsev made his name as a deadly marksman of the Soviet Union, with 242 confirmed kills by the end of the 6-month campaign. Facing Major Koenig, the story of the two snipers' duel echoed as triumph for the Soviets when Major Koenig was slain by Vasily in the city.
Well, basically, I think the order of no step back turned Stalingrad into the meat grinder of the East for both Soviets and the Germans. But in the case of the Germans, it was more disadvantageous because speed was key, and a meat grinder was the last thing they could afford to get caught on. I think in the grand scheme of things, it was a definitely a propaganda victory for the Soviets and a morale blow to the Germans. Just having like a phantom sniper doesn't really help morale.
From the orders of Russian generals Zhukov and Vasilevsky, Russian forces organized and occupied the mountains due north and west of the city. Launching their counterattack, known as Operation Uranus, the Russians were able to establish a ring around the city, putting the German forces in the city into an encircled pocket by late November of 1942. 300,000 German and Axis troops of the Sixth Army were completely cut off from everything.
I think they were encircled because Hitler had them on ultra aggressive orders, and at that point, believed that the Luftwaffe was diminishing in its power and capability to support German troops on the Eastern Front. Germany and or the Axis powers were fighting a two-front war, and to focus on to attempt to break such an encirclement would probably put even more hundreds of thousands of men and units at risk that wouldn't be needed.